Have you ever wondered what it's like when the rarest personality type finally finds someone who truly gets them? Picture this. You're an INFJ, spending most of your life feeling like you're speaking a different language than everyone else around you. Then, out of nowhere, someone walks into your life who doesn't just understand your words. They finish your sentences before you even start them. What happens next? Well, buckle up because we're about to dive deep into one of the most extraordinary experiences in the world of personality psychology. Today, we're exploring what happens when an INFJ finally meets their equal, and trust me, it's nothing short of magical. 1. The INFJ's lonely journey, understanding the rarest personality. Let's start by understanding why this moment is so significant for INFJs. Known as the advocate or the counselor, INFJs make up less than 2% of the population. That means if you're an INFJ, you're literally 1 in 50 people. Imagine walking through a crowded mall and knowing that out of every 50 faces you see, only one might truly understand how your mind works. For years, maybe decades, INFJs have been navigating a world that often feels too loud, too shallow, or too rushed. They've been the ones listening to everyone else's problems while keeping their own thoughts locked away. They've smiled politely at small talk while yearning for conversations that dive into life's deeper meanings. They felt like aliens on their own planet, wondering if anyone else sees the world through their unique lens. The INFJ's daily experience is like being a deep-sea diver in a world full of people who prefer to splash around in kiddie pools. There's nothing wrong with either approach, but the disconnect can feel overwhelming. They crave authentic connections but rarely find people who match their intensity and depth. 2. The magic moment, when two minds align. Now, picture this scene. An INFJ is going about their regular day, maybe browsing books at a quiet bookstore or sitting alone at their favorite coffee shop, when someone approaches. But this isn't just any someone. This person doesn't start with weather talk or generic pleasantries. Instead, they make an observation that cuts straight to something meaningful, maybe about the book the INFJ is reading, or they share an insight that reveals genuine depth of thought. The INFJ's first reaction is often shock. Wait, did someone just understand what I was thinking without me having to explain it? Their mental walls, built up over years of feeling misunderstood, don't crumble immediately. Instead, there's a cautious curiosity. They test the waters with a slightly deeper response, waiting to see if this person will retreat to surface-level chat like most others do. But here's where the magic happens. The other person doesn't retreat. They lean in. They build upon the INFJ's thoughts with their own insights. They ask questions that show they're not just listening, they're truly hearing and processing on the same wavelength. For the first time in possibly years, the INFJ feels like they're speaking their native language with someone who's fluent in it too. 3. The initial disbelief. Is this really happening? When an INFJ first encounters their equal, disbelief is often the dominant emotion. They've been disappointed so many times before by people who seemed promising but eventually proved to be surface-level connections. Their mind races with questions. Is this person really as deep as they seem, or are they just good at mimicking depth? Will they stick around when conversations get really intense, or will they run like the others? This skepticism isn't cynicism, it's self-protection. INFJs have learned to guard their hearts because they've opened up to people before, only to be met with blank stares, uncomfortable silences, or worse, judgment. They've been called too intense, too serious, or too much by people who couldn't handle their authenticity. So when someone shows up who seems to match their energy and depth, the INFJ's first instinct is to proceed with caution. They might test this new person with increasingly personal or philosophical topics, watching carefully for any signs that they're overwhelming them or pushing them away. But here's what's beautiful about meeting an equal. The other person passes these tests not because they're trying to, but because they genuinely operate on the same level. They don't see the INFJ's intensity as too much, they see it as finally enough. 4. The mutual recognition, seeing themselves reflected. There's a moment in every significant connection where both parties realize they've found something special. For INFJs meeting their equal, this recognition often feels like looking into a mirror, not physically, but spiritually and mentally. They start noticing uncanny similarities. The other person also prefers deep conversations over small talk. They also see patterns and connections that others miss. They also feel drained by large crowds and energized by meaningful one-on-one interactions. They also have that same intuitive understanding of people and situations. But it's not just about similarities, it's about complementarity too. Maybe the INFJ is strong in areas where their equal has room to grow, and vice versa. They begin to see how they could learn from each other, challenge each other, and grow together in ways they never imagined possible. This mutual recognition creates a unique bond. It's like two people who've been speaking different dialects of the same language suddenly realizing they're from the same hometown. The relief and excitement are overwhelming. 5. Breaking down the walls. Vulnerability without fear. One of the most significant changes that happens when an INFJ meets their equal is the gradual dismantling of emotional walls. These walls weren't built to keep people out for the sake of being antisocial. They were built as protection against misunderstanding, judgment, and rejection. For the first time in a long time, the INFJ begins to feel safe being completely authentic. They start sharing thoughts and feelings they've kept hidden for years. They talk about their unusual insights, their complex emotions, and their big dreams without fear of being dismissed or misunderstood. What's remarkable is how naturally this vulnerability flows. With most people, INFJs have to carefully meter out their depth, testing the waters at each level to make sure they're not overwhelming their companion. But with their equal, they can dive straight into the deep end, knowing the other person won't drown in their intensity. This mutual vulnerability creates an incredibly strong bond. Both people feel seen and accepted for who they truly are, flaws and all. They don't have to perform or pretend, they can just be. 6. The communication revolution, finally being understood. Communication with an equal transforms completely for an INFJ. Gone are the days of carefully translating their thoughts into normal person language or dumbing down their insights to make them more palatable. Instead, they can speak in their natural voice and be understood immediately. The conversations that emerge are unlike anything the INFJ has experienced before. They're layered, nuanced, and full of subtext that both parties naturally pick up on. They can reference obscure ideas and be met with genuine engagement rather than confused looks. They can express complex emotions and have them validated rather than dismissed. But it's not just about being understood, it's about being challenged in productive ways too. Their equal doesn't just nod along with everything they say. Instead, they offer different perspectives, ask probing questions, and introduce new ideas that expand the INFJ's thinking. These conversations often last for hours without either party realizing how much time has passed. They lose themselves in the joy of finally having someone who can keep up with their mental pace and match their intellectual curiosity. 7. Emotional validation, the healing power of being seen. For many INFJs, meeting their equal begins a profound healing process. Years of feeling misunderstood, isolated, or different start to melt away as they realize they're not alone in their way of experiencing the world. This validation is incredibly powerful. It's not just about feeling better, it's about feeling normal for the first time in their lives. All those quirks and characteristics that made them feel like outsiders suddenly make perfect sense when reflected in another person. The INFJ might find themselves thinking, so this is what it feels like to be truly seen and accepted. The relief can be overwhelming. Some describe it as finally being able to exhale after holding their breath for years. This emotional validation often leads to increased self-acceptance and confidence. When you know there's at least one person in the world who gets you completely, it becomes easier to be yourself with others too, even if they don't understand you as deeply. 8. The growth acceleration, becoming better together. One of the most exciting aspects of an INFJ meeting their equal is how it accelerates personal growth for both parties. When you have someone who truly understands your potential and isn't threatened by your ambitions, you feel empowered to reach higher than ever before. The equal relationship creates a safe space for honest feedback. INFJs can be perfectionists who are often their own harshest critics. Having an equal who can point out blind spots with love and understanding helps them grow in ways they couldn't achieve alone. There's also a beautiful competitive element, not in a negative way, but in a mutually inspiring way. Seeing their equal pursue their dreams and overcome challenges motivates the INFJ to step up their own game. They push each other to be better versions of themselves. This growth isn't limited to personal development either. Creative projects flourish, career goals become clearer, and life purposes feel more attainable when you have someone who believes in your vision and can help you refine it. 9. Challenges and adjustments. Navigating new territory. Meeting an equal isn't all smooth sailing, even for INFJs. There are unique challenges that come with this type of deep connection. For someone who's used to being the most intuitive person in the room, suddenly being matched or even exceeded in insight can be both thrilling and slightly uncomfortable. INFJs might find themselves feeling more vulnerable than they're used to. When someone can read them as easily as they read others, it can feel exposing. They might discover blind spots they didn't know existed or face truths about themselves they've been avoiding. There can also be an adjustment period around independence. INFJs are used to being self-reliant emotionally and intellectually. Learning to truly collaborate and depend on someone else, even someone who understands them perfectly, can feel foreign at first. Sometimes, the intensity of the connection can be overwhelming. Two highly intuitive, emotionally deep people connecting can create an emotional whirlwind that takes time to navigate and balance. 10. The transformation, how the INFJ changes. Meeting their equal doesn't just give INFJs a great relationship, it fundamentally changes who they are. The constant vigilance they've maintained to protect themselves from misunderstandings starts to relax. They become more open, more trusting, and more willing to be vulnerable with others. Their confidence grows exponentially. When someone whose judgment they trust sees them as amazing, it becomes harder to maintain negative self-talk or imposter syndrome. They start to own their gifts and talents rather than downplaying them. Many INFJs report feeling more grounded and centered after meeting their equal. The constant questioning of whether they're normal or too much fades away, replaced by a solid sense of self-acceptance. They also often become more compassionate toward others who don't understand them. When you've experienced being truly seen, it becomes easier to be patient with those who can only see surface levels. 11. The ripple effect, impact on other relationships. The transformation that occurs when an INFJ meets their equal doesn't stay contained within that one relationship. It ripples out to affect all their other connections in positive ways. With family members who never quite got them, INFJs often find new patience and understanding. They stop needing everyone to understand them completely because they know at least one person does. This reduces frustration and increases their ability to appreciate others for what they do bring to the table. Friendships often improve too. The INFJ becomes more selective about their social circle, but also more present in the relationships they maintain. They're less likely to settle for surface-level friendships and more likely to gently guide conversations toward deeper topics. In professional settings, INFJs who've met their equal often show increased confidence in sharing their ideas and insights. They know their perspective has value because they've experienced having it appreciated and built upon by someone they respect. 12. Long-term implications, building a life together. When an INFJ finds their true equal, whether in friendship, partnership, or mentorship, the long-term implications are profound. They often begin co-creating a life that honors both of their authentic selves rather than compromising to fit into conventional molds. This might mean pursuing unconventional career paths, creating unique living situations, or developing projects that reflect their shared values and vision. They're not worried about what others think because they have someone who validates their choices and dreams. The partnership becomes a safe haven from a world that often doesn't understand them. They create their own little universe where depth is valued, authenticity is expected, and growth is constant. Many INFJs describe this as finally feeling like they have a true teammate in life, someone who's not just along for the ride, but who's actively helping navigate toward shared goals and dreams. 13. The search versus the surprise, different ways it happens. It's worth noting that INFJs meet their equals in different ways. Some actively search for deep connections, joining groups or activities that attract like-minded individuals. They might seek out book clubs, philosophy discussions, volunteer organizations, or spiritual communities where they're more likely to find people who value depth and meaning. Others stumble upon their equal completely by accident. Maybe it's a coworker who reveals unexpected depth during a casual conversation, or a neighbor who shares a profound insight about life. Sometimes it's someone online who responds to their thoughts in a way that shows true understanding. The surprise encounters often feel more magical because they're unexpected. There's something beautiful about finding deep connection in the most ordinary circumstances. It reinforces the idea that meaningful relationships can bloom anywhere when two compatible souls cross paths. 14. Red flags versus green flags. Recognizing true equals. Not everyone who seems deep initially turns out to be an INFJ's true equal. Learning to distinguish between someone who's genuinely compatible versus someone who's just good at appearing deep is crucial. Green flags include consistent depth in conversations over time, the ability to sit comfortably in emotional intensity, genuine curiosity about the INFJ's thoughts and feelings, respect for boundaries, and complementary growth rather than codependency. Red flags might include using depth as a manipulation tactic, becoming competitive rather than collaborative, trying to fix the INFJ instead of accepting them, or creating drama for the sake of intensity rather than pursuing genuine connection. True equals enhance an INFJ's life without trying to change them. They appreciate the INFJ's unique qualities while also challenging them to grow in healthy directions. Conclusion: the life-changing power of being understood. When an INFJ finally meets their equal, it's nothing short of life-changing. After years of feeling like they're speaking a foreign language in their own culture, they finally find someone who's fluent in their native tongue. The relief, joy, and growth that follow this discovery ripple out to transform every area of their life. This connection validates their deepest sense of self and gives them permission to be fully authentic. It accelerates their personal growth, heals old wounds from feeling misunderstood, and opens up possibilities they never imagined. Most importantly, it proves that they don't have to choose between being true to themselves and being loved. They can have both. For INFJs still waiting to meet their equal, take heart. You're not asking for too much when you want deep, authentic connection. You're not too intense or too much. You're simply rare, and rare things take time to find their perfect match. Keep being authentically you, keep putting yourself in situations where meaningful connections are possible, and trust that somewhere out there, someone is hoping to meet someone exactly like you. The wait is worth it. When it happens, you'll understand why all those surface-level connections never quite worked. You were holding out for something extraordinary, and extraordinary is exactly what you'll find. Remember, being an INFJ in this world isn't a burden to bear, it's a gift to share. And when you find your equal, that gift becomes magnified in ways you never thought possible. The magic is real, the connection is profound, and the transformation is permanent. Your equal is out there. And when you find them, everything will make perfect sense.